A warm welcome to A Nurse's Lift to Work with Tina and Kate, coaching podcast by two healthcare professionals. We are friends, we are nurses, master NLP coaches, hypnotherapists, parents and business owners. We are busy people juggling many things just like you.
You are in for a treat. We will chat about informal coaching tips, coping strategies, and how to effectively change your mindset and have some fun along the way. So, hop on board with us for A Nurse's Lift to Work. Hello, this is A Lift Nursing Work, and this is Tina.
And I'm Kate. Welcome, everybody. Today, we've got a wonderful guest with us. Gina, welcome. Please introduce yourself to everybody.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Tina, and inviting me to do this podcast with you. So I'm known as Gina King. I'm a nurse. It'll be this year will be my 40th year that I started training. All that long time ago. And what else can I say? You need to ask me questions and I'll answer more so simply.
So you've been qualified 40 years?
Well,
done.
I started my training in 1985. So I see myself as a nurse of 40 years experience.
Amazing. But what do you do currently?
So currently I'm an independent, what you would call freelance, consultant. And within that, I've got lots of different strings to my bow. So predominantly end-of-life care is sort of what I focus on. And that's where the majority of my career has been. But I do range from project work to training to coaching. I'm a reflexologist. So yeah, I'm hoping to learn Reiki. So very sort of broad in some senses, but the interest keeps me on my toes.
Nice. So how does it work being an independent consultant with end of life care? Are you affiliated to any particular organisation, or do you just tout your wares, as it were, professionally?
So it's more about connections that I have. So I do work for have some contracts with companies, but that's sort of more focused on coaching. In the end of life, it's what I've done independently is created a forum for any professionals working in end of life care. So they don't have to be like I used to, like they had to be a facilitator or a leader. It could be anyone. And that was really set up more in COVID, some training sessions to keep everyone connected and support and have a forum where you didn't reinvent the wheel. So you could share your work and other people hear about it. And then that good practice is then pushed across rather than, working in silos and not hearing about what else others are up to.
That's amazing. Where can people, I know Tina will ask this question later anyway, but where can we find you? So I know a lot of people that work in end of life care. Where can they find you?
So I'm easy to find if people want to connect with me and just have a chat to find what we're about. So I've got a website, very simply, just ginaking.co.uk. So although I'm primarily known as Time for You, that's what I call myself as my own business. It was decided it was easier to find me by name rather than by Time for You. So keep it straightforward. And then there's a Facebook page that anyone can join. And on that Facebook page, there's any sort of recent, changes in national documentation, especially like things at the moment with the assisted dying. It's just keeping it more people informed currently in one place, because it's a lot of people feel it's just sort of quite, what's the word, fragmented, and people don't know where to go for the right information. And so on this Facebook page, you've got people working in hospices and from the community, from the hospital. So there's, and everyone's so lovely. It's just a great forum.
Awesome. I'm just looking it up now.
Yeah. Does it have a specific name, the Facebook?
It's a Southwest End of Life Forum. I've got a friend request.
Yeah, lovely. That's good. And Gina, so I know when we first met, which was some years ago, you were a nurse working in commissioning.
That's right.
Tell me about how you found your way there and what that was like, what it's like to be a nurse working in commissioning.
Oh, that's a very good question. So I come about being a commissioner because things change from the primary care trust to a clinical commissioning group. And so I was there as an end-of-life facilitator lead, but it got changed into that commissioning role because, you know, the framework, the structure changed. And so initially I resisted it because I couldn't see myself as a commissioner, because my core values was I'm a nurse. This is about, I wanted to improve quality of care for people at the end of life, keep it standardization across one county. But what I learned was, well, one, I got told by this great manager by saying, Gina, all commissioning is, right, because I got confused, is when you're shopping in Tesco's and you're looking for a product, but actually you can get a better product by working or by going to another supermarket. That actually what commission is about actually buying the best quality products for the right costs. So it was all about quality, which I could then align to. And then what it helped me was that had to remember is actually Gina with her core values. What I wanted was still the same, but actually use it to enhance quality of life by being a commissioner and working with providers and supporting them, structuring their ways so they actually worked more effectively. So kind of morphed it, but I don't think I ever was a brilliant commissioner. Because I'm just Gina King. And I didn't realise that actually I absorbed that role until I went to a meeting at Hospice UK, and someone turned around to me because I was working for NHS England. She goes, can I ask you, did you used to be a commissioner, or are you a commissioner? Because the language I was using showed that actually I had absorbed that role.
And I think you are a fabulous example of the fact that nurses add value wherever they are. And if they're in commissioning, they're adding value, they're giving that nursing point of view, they're speaking usually patient-orientated language, they're reminding people about the end product, i.e. patient care and experience, you know, and it's all kind of, it's not what people imagine. So if I was a band 5 nurse somewhere or a newly qualified nurse, I might not imagine that this is what somebody does in a job like that. But it's great to have you on to talk about that, because I think as we all work our way through our careers, you never know where you might be. And I think there's something really powerful about having nurses everywhere. Like, I'd like us to infiltrate the world, basically. Great. So that's why I wanted you to talk about that a little bit. So interesting, you know, to see where nurses might end up in their career. And why end of life then, Gina?
In my career has kind of been, I'm not sure if I've fallen in it, but there's been something that's been around, and I've taken leaps of faith towards that and had the confidence to go and listen to my heart. So, I mean, I didn't originally nursing wasn't my original career choice, but I kind of was guided around that when I was about 18 doing my A-levels. But it was actually the third year of when I was doing my nursing training. And I was on this ward, and I ended up being a staff nurse there. And there was two men. It was a gastro in a GI ward, and surgical and medical. And there was a one chap that had come in with back pain, and you wouldn't have that these days, but come out with back pain, and he was being investigated. And what it showed, that from his CT scan, that he had a large abscess on his spine, and that's why he's in so much pain. And we was at handover with the other nurses, and they're going, well, that's so strange. Why didn't he have like temperature spikes? And I said, well, because he's on paracetamol regularly, so that's suppressing his temperature. And it was then looking around, there was other people in pain, and there was the nurses, bless them, not trying to be critical, but they had no idea about how to manage individuals' pain. And then there was another gentleman that was frightened, and I supported him. And I just thought, I can't sit here and not know enough about looking after people, even if they're not dying. And then I sort of went on to be a staff nurse, and then I said, oh, I really want to work in community, and I want to improve people's pain, quality of life. And someone said, oh, well, what you're talking about, Gina, is a Macmillan nurse, now known as specialist palliative care nurse. That's the role that you're looking at. And I'd never heard of a Macmillan nurse then. We didn't nurses around that time, because this is 1988. And I said, oh, right, okay. Oh, so I looked into it, and I thought, oh, that's perfect. But there was no clear path of training. All I knew is that you had to have different experiences. So I kind of bounced, Tina. I went, right, okay, I need to know oncology knowledge. Right, I'll go and work at Mount Vernon Hospital. I couldn't get in straight away, worked at Burns, and then went there. And then I then did worked on a unit, then went to surgical medical, and then I thought I need to be a community nurse to become a Macmillan nurse. So I became a staff nurse in the community. Then I went on to got offered sponsors to do the district nursing course, did that, and then a few years later, after being a sister, I got an offer to be seconded into a hospital. And then I was working there for years as a palliative care nurse. So yeah, I could go on waffling still about my career, but then I've just stayed with end of life care all this time, really, because that's where my passion, where my enthusiasm is.
The thing I love about this, and when we have guests on, is that, and Tina and I, we do say this a lot, is that when you go into nursing, the options that you have are limitless, and you can do anything, and you can go anywhere, and the experiences that you get, and it doesn't matter where you work, the experiences that you get will just take you to the next level, and everywhere that you work will have value and add to where you ultimately want to go. And that's, I love it. I really do love it, because even those bad situations lead to something, for you with the pain relief. It from that one moment, look where you ended up. It's amazing, isn't it? How something so seemingly insignificant has such a massive impact.
And we come across a lot of very newly qualified or end of training students in both of our jobs, Gina, and you hear this saying a lot. You hear people go, well, I have this dream job and I can't get to my dream job. Well, it's kind of interesting, because the more you talk to nurses who've have been through a career and are closer to the end point of their career, the more that you realize it's actually often not the journey you think, not the places you think you'll work, not what you would have said your dream job was when you were 21. It can become something completely different as you grow and flourish and learn. So it's great to have these conversations. So I want to ask you a bit about like how you cope with things, because a lot of the work that me and Kate do is about mindset work, and I bet you, Jean, you do a bit of this in your coaching as well. So when it's a crazy day or things are all gone maybe not to plan, how do you manage that? What keeps you sane, keeps you going?
Right, it's going to sound really bizarre, but my goats, my two pygmy goats, and they bring so much joy. You can hear it in my voice. They are just so funny. Just the other week, they're called Sooty, right, and Sleep Pea. And they just, the other week they were bouncing around because they're so domesticated. They're like dogs. They follow me. They just, if I leave them, when I just hay, they just want more fun. But Suchi was getting really excited, and I just to clear up the hay, and she just got two little horns, and it went poof right into my forehead, and I'm going, oh, like this, and she didn't do it on purpose, but yeah, and they do. I've taught them to do tricks, and the community has given us so many tires. They've got a trim trowel, and they've got a little bridge now, so it's like Billy Goat's gruff across, and they're so spoilt. They won't eat grass. They will only have hay or their muesli. They're just. So if I'm having a crazy day, I mean, the garden gives me joy as well, but I just like, and I can hear them, they hear me crunching across the drive, and they're bleating away, come on, come down, come and see me. So yeah, so that's my secret.
I guess they're great to have conversations with as well, because they don't answer you, and you can just blurt everything out, and they just either listen or ignore you one way or the other.
Yeah, I think it just grounds you, I think. I mean, we've got a lovely dog called Neelix, and he's like a therapy dog. So like I'm quite I'm not an emotional person, but I do like, if there's something, then I'll cry, doesn't that frustration, that sort of release, and it'll come up. Like, he's a big sort of his cross between a German Shepherd and a Saluki, and he's licking my face and like going, come on, it's all right. So yeah, so the power of nature and pets.
That's so true, isn't it? Kate and I were talking earlier this morning, and I'd had a bit of a frantic lot of thinking in my head about tasks that I had to do, and I gave myself some time, and then secondly just sat in the garden for 10 minutes this morning just before Kate and I came online, just listening to the birds, and it was probably less than 10 minutes, but it was just such a lovely, grounding, nice experience to have. So I'm picturing you with the goats now, Gina.
If you see my Instagram page, there's like, I'm trying not to have it too goat heavy, so I don't think they love dried pasta as well, and which is really weird considering some of it's got egg, like tagliatelle, and you hear them and they go, it's so loud, and we've recorded them because it's so fun. Their little mouths are yeah. Yeah.
You've got to take your joy where you find it, haven't you? I reckon.
Yeah, Gina, I was going to ask you what your guilty pleasure was, but I think it might be your goats.
I know. I'm sorry. There wasn't like, my goats, and I've got 3 children, but they're like, oh no, I've got a granddaughter. No, there's the goat. But I used to have a goat as a child, and this just shows what a person I am. Probably you don't realise until later on how determined I am as as an individual. Yeah, I lived in a council estate in West London, and I don't know if you remember The Good Life. Yes, I don't know, the younger listeners will. But, it was about the sort of small hole in the garden to live off, and so mum and dad said no to having a dog. So I saw The Good Life, and they walked. I don't know if you remember that episode. They walked the goat, and I went, oh, then right. Oh, can I have a goat? And it's only my letter said, yes, okay, but you have to do is pay for it yourself. You have to contact the council. You have to check with them. It was like a long that I had to do, and I did it, and they couldn't say no because I saved £1. I got £1 a week pocket money, and I saved it to buy this goat. And her name was Honey, and I did walk her. I mean, when you think a teenager walking a goat in a council estate in West London, and she lived in a back garden, and yeah, and I didn't know then you're not supposed to have goats by themselves, but yeah, she was my best friend. So that's one of the reasons I've moved here in North Devon, so I could have the goats. You see, because I don't think they would quite accept it in Oxfordshire, having a couple of pygmy goats in the back garden.
That's just one of the best stories ever, Gina. It's amazing.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think, knowing Gina a little bit, and knowing, hearing this from you today, Gina, about your goats various, I think that those characteristics of determination just are a lot of what nurses are drawing on when they need to get through their day-to-day, really. What advice would you give a newly qualified nurse if you came across them tomorrow? What would you wisdoms have to give?
So one of the things that I would say is, sounds probably a bit odd, but it's language. And it's about keeping things simple and straightforward, and that how language can be misused. Does that make sense? In communication or whatever you're looking for your career, and really sort of if you're driving forward, is making sense of the right, does this make sense? The right language and having your self-belief. So having common core values, and whatever someone, when we get a bad day, don't ever think that actually it's about you. Does that make sense? It can be a lot about other things that are going around, and the transference that some people can do because of their own, does that make their own feelings and everything else. So I interlink that with language of how you share and how you communicate to actually ease that situation and move forward. So I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it's what I learned was that how I was, what I was a bit like about ended up being a Macmillan nurse. I didn't know that language, and I'm still learning. And I think it's checking out that actually you're on the same page as you're talking with the language is what I'm saying more simply, I think, just to make sense for your listeners. And sort of take leaps of faith like I did. Does that make sense? And not be afraid. I think that's what Kate was saying before. And actually, things don't always work out. I've worked in some interesting places, met some amazing people, but I say you take value going, oh wow, it sort of crosses things off in your list. If you do work somewhere and it doesn't it doesn't work out for you, just think, well, okay, that I'll move on from that. We know that's not right for me. And it's the other thing is about learning, right? And that even my years of experience, I'm still learning. So don't be afraid that you think everybody knows everything, right? It's, just there's a self-belief. But I've got this client at the moment, and she said, as a parent, she's learning, relearning, and learning. And that's kind of like in a plan, do, study, act sort of cycle for me. And use with all that, and I know people do more reflective practice now, but that reflective practice to really lean back from a situation and see it more as an objective situation rather than subjective, to then help you build on your own foundations of how you want to move forward. And it doesn't have to be a difficult situation that you're doing that reflective practice, but it can be a good situation. That's what language was the point, was I wish I'd learnt then about, someone said, we say, oh, can I ask a daft question? Mm-hmm. Yeah. They always say, this is language. And someone said, no, call it an innocent question, because you're thinking, that person thinking, oh, I'm daft and I've got to ask a daft question, and that nervousness. And then that person might think, answer it, and well, they must be daft for asking it. All the psychology behind it. But it's about actually your innocent question is because you don't know. Mm. And I think that's quite important. That positivity behind certain bits of language will help you move on with your career.
This is exactly the right place to talk about language, Gina. You're ringing all our bells here for me and Kate. This is truly what we spend so much time talking about. And you would think, imagine a lot of the people listening to our podcast are English speakers, and it's often their first language. But even if it's your second, I admire you for speaking a second language. But you'd think we speak the same language, but we absolutely don't. 90% of the time, it's so easy to be misunderstood. And we load our limiting beliefs into our language. So your example is brilliant of, do you mind if I ask a daft question? I take it one stage further because I'm just that kind of person. And I say, don't even ask permission to ask a question. When people say in meetings, is it okay if I ask a question? I think, why are you asking if it's okay to ask a question? Don't even do that. Just say, I'm curious. Is it possible to X? Or why do you think this is good, Kate? Just dive in, because nurses spend a lot of their time being quite apologetic for their existence. Really want to encourage us as a profession to just stand our ground, know you're as viable, and you should be there as much as the next professional, next person. And I liked what you said about the innocent question, the curious question. Yeah, just reframe it, as Kate and I would say. What would you add, Kate, to that?
I was just thinking about, Gina, when you said about keeping the communication simple, because oftentimes, especially as health professionals, we overcomplicate things a little bit that can lead to misinterpretation. So I liked that. Keep it simple. Say what you mean, not what you think you should say.
Yeah. And also I love that leap of faith thing, because often what Kate and I observe as people begin their careers is this almost desire to have it perfect from day one. And I want to walk into the perfect team. I want to be the perfect registrant. I want to have the perfect job. You know, it takes time to sort of suss it out. Like going on holiday, you know, you might go to a resort one year and think, well, we like the beach, but not the busyness. You might go to a resort the second year and think, we like the quietness and the beach, but be nice if there was a bit more nature. And over the years, you'll get to a place where you'll realize what is your perfect kind of holiday. And it's the same with work, really. We want perfect so quickly, whatever perfect is. Yeah, so courage and taking leaps of faith it gets you into really interesting and funny situations, doesn't it?
Well, that's kind of how we got the podcast, isn't it?
Yeah.
We just did it, took that leap, didn't think about it, just did it. Here we are.
I mean, if you listen to the very, very early episodes, and some of them we've taken Jay and Gina because, quite frankly, they're too embarrassing because we just really didn't know what we were doing. And we are very happy to admit that we just thought, let's give it a go and we'll learn. As you rightly said, we'll learn as we go. We'll get better and we'll learn.
But I think what you said about being perfect, I think it's being imperfectly perfect or perfect imperfectly. You know, that there is, and I think that's about you also when you're starting off in your career, that is having the courage and confidence to actually do speak to the consultant, or does that mean, and that actually no one is perfect, and people might look like that on the outside and make you feel like you're intimidated. And I remember, you know, there used to be this specialist nurse in she was doing stoma specialist, right? And everybody was just, you know, scared of her. But actually, when you sat down and talked to her, it was just a facade, and a lot of people have this facade. And I hope in my journey as a nurse, and I am now, to be approachable. Yes, I can say I can have an ego as big as the room, but actually that's not going to help anybody, is it? That's not encouraging them to talk to me. And what's the point of having my experience or knowledge or skills if I can't help someone else? So I've got to give that permission. I think that's important, but not everybody does, as we know. People are scared behind their facades.
Yeah.
So taking that just a little bit further, for anybody that's listening, what's the best way to make friends and allies in the workplace, especially when you think that people aren't particularly approachable?
So that's a really good question, and I think it's what I learned to do was have actually what's in your control. Okay, so you can't control other people, but what's actually in your control. So in your control is actually your openness. Does that make sense? So you're giving that permission for that person to speak to you, a bit like what I said to you before about being approachable. But it's smile, it's that eye contact, it's that, you know, open body language, to sort of reassure that other person, because actually they might not realize that actually they're giving out this message of, you know, don't talk to me or whatever. And I've learned more about open questions, about having a little bit of a toolkit for different situations of, like, how do I engage that person by asking an open question, and using what I call the 6 disciples, which comes from they're called 6 wise men, Rudyard Kipling. And with the who and the what, the when and the why, the when and the how, and actually thinking, oh, what could be a question like, hello, my name is, just don't be afraid. I think it's doing leaps of faith again. And what do you really want to know? What can you do to engage that person? Don't always talk about the weather, because you could just I learned the conversation. I was like I said, a hospital specialist palliative care nurse. Get me teeth in, and I was seeing like up to possibly 18 patients a day on the ward, and having to build up that rapport very quickly on busy wards. And how do I do that? How can I build up that rapport? And I know this is patients are not, another professional, but actually looking for clues. What could you ask a question about? A newspaper being on the side, or a magazine, or a flower, or anything else. So being a bit of a detective about what is it about this person that you could ask an open question about, and smiling and engaging and using those tools. And never be afraid. Never do it, because what's the worst could happen? What could? They're not going to slap you for having a conversation, are they? So take it by the horns, but not my goat horns.
Yeah, some lovely, really considerate, like, practical things to do there, Gina. I think, often nurses look for really practical things, don't they? And somebody asked a similar question to one Kate's asked you in the Facebook group that Kate runs for preceptorship nurses the other day. And one of the advice was to ask your new colleague, if you're new in a team, to say, as you know, I'm new, and I was wondering, when you were new, what did you do to find your way in? Because in that way, you're reminding them that, oh yeah, that you were once new. So, you had that feeling once, that new girl, new boy feeling. And also seeking their wisdom. Seeking people's wisdom always helps build a relationship, especially if it's on that interpersonal level. So I quite like seeing that take place in the group. I thought that was quite helpful. But great tips, Gina, really brilliant. So we're probably coming to our more or less last question, I think, and that would be, what makes nursing fulfilling for you?
The biggest thing for me is making a difference. And I think when people ask me, why do I want to do end of life care, in the sense of, oh, that must be tough. That must be really difficult. You must be a special person to do that. And I'm going, I'm not a special person. I love doing it, because actually, if you can, my heart is, does that make sense? I'm still that in that place. But if you can make someone at the end of life have a better quality of life, because living the point they've died, and that's a really important language again. Does that make sense? Flips it on its head, and making in everything I do, like I'm doing a hand massage next for someone in the village, all right, and I make that difference of actually, you're stroking her hand, and she's no physical contact, that in touch, and she's had a stroke, so one of her arms is affected, to sort of uncurl and leave and her relax and go, oh, it makes me want to fall asleep. And seeing that change, that I think it is making a difference and changing the situation, whether it's coaching, whether it's training, changing people's views or changing behaviours or whatever it is, so someone's in a better place, whether they're learning or whether they've a better understanding about themselves or whether they're able to take the confidence to and move on with their career via coaching. So yeah, that's sort of the core for me.
Fantastic. What a lovely answer. I love that answer. Thanks, Gina. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. It's been fabulous to hear everything about your career and the goats and your wisdoms. So thank you for taking the time. It's been brilliant. Kate, do you want to add anything?
No, it's just nice to talk about goats instead of my cats.
You have been listening to A Lift to Nursing Work with Tina.
And I'm Kate.
You've been listening to A Nurse's Lift to Work with Kate and Tina. Please remember, this is not a replacement for medical treatment or help, so do seek assistance if you need to.
Thank you for joining us. Please do like, subscribe, give us stars, like and share with your friends and colleagues. All the good things.